You're listening to the Backyard TARDIS Random Thoughts Podcast, part of the Red 5 Network. Hey, Nicholas with the Backyard TARDIS here with another Random Thoughts Podcast, now part of the Red 5 Network. And the podcast you're about to listen to was recorded before I joined the Red 5 Network, but I do mention it because I'm already a super fan of the Red 5 Network. But this is something I actually recorded back in July. And just to kind of give you a little context, this was my third attempt recording this video. And things kept coming out, and like I'd recorded it once back in February and then scrapped it. And then I thought, oh, I'll try again. And then something came out around June, July. We had that thing that was trying to cancel certain YouTubers. And that's what motivated me to do that. And I will say, in this version of the video, I deleted the original two, so I don't have those. But in this version of the podcast, I do focus a lot on those specific YouTubers that were in that. Case in point, I'm not really a fan, except for I do enjoy Star Wars Theory on occasion. Not everything he produced, but I do like some of his content. I'm not a fan, and so it might seem like I'm focusing a lot on those people. So if you're new to my content, that's not really what you're going to see me parroting a lot of their opinions or certain things like that. But I was really impassioned and upset by just the way the fandom was reacting and the way I saw podcasts. And I've seen some improvement since I recorded this video. I've seen some stay the same. Know that I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I am being very frank in this video, which is kind of some trends that I've been seeing from my fellow podcasters. And it's, I listen to a lot of podcasts. And so just kind of giving some advice to other ones, especially to ones that I like. That's the big thing. I'm hoping some of them watch this because I am talking about some things I like. Now, why didn't I post this in July? Well, one, my channel had been kind of inactive and I didn't really want to just post this random video by itself out of the blue. But the big thing is I go long, and I thought, no, I want to do this in like a 20-minute, 30-minute thing. I want to be more, I go off on tangents. I started talking about things. So when I listened back to it, I was like, oh man, I'm kind of all over the place. But then I got to thinking as I was coming to the close of the year, and I was like, you know what, next year I just got to post. And one of the things I said is I'm going to take a bunch of this content that I made and I'm going to post it. And this was one that I keep saying I was going to remake. I'm like, this is the third time I've made this video. And new events, new things, it changes what I'm actually talking about. So they were three very different videos. Well, the first two were kind of more closer to each other, and then this one was very unique. But what I was going to remake of this one would have been similar to this one, maybe more tight, more notes. But I thought it's my Random Thoughts podcast. So I'm kind of randomly going to go down rabbit holes, get off on a tangent that's not really the subject. That's just me talking nerd stuff. And this one's just kind of more of a state on where I see podcasting right now going, and this quote-unquote what a lot of people have deemed toxic positivity, so to speak. And so without further ado, here is this podcast. But just have that context. This is kind of outdated because it's talking a lot, focusing on stuff that was happening back in July. But a lot of it still applies, and some of it's still going on. Not as heated as back then, but like I feel like that was kind of like the boiling over point for the year. Without that, let's get into it. Hey, it's been a while. I haven't been producing much videos. Life's been crazy. More active on my Adventures in Locksmithing channel, but yes, it's me, Nicholas with the Backyard TARDIS, and well, Star Wars community, especially the podcasting community, we need to talk. Now, if you've randomly just clicked on this video from YouTube or something like that, you may be going, who are you? Who are you to be saying this? You're obviously not a big channel. No, I'm not coming at this as one podcaster trying to tell other podcasters what to do. I'm coming at this as a listener podcast. I, listen to a lot of podcasts. At one point, I had up to 140. I've kind of scaled back to about 75 podcasts that I listen to on the regular. Probably a good core 40 that I'm listening to at least once a month. And I've been noticing a trend in because a good portion of those are Star Wars, and you can ask my friends over on the Red 5 Network. I support ones when I can. I interact with channels. Doing it, as I mentioned, I've had some real life things going on, but I've been noticing a trend since the beginning of this year, and I honestly had an idea of doing this video much earlier in the year, but a recent thing that has come up we'll just put it right there. This has been going around Twitter, and it's basically been something very distressing to me of ones trying to cancel certain channels, accusing them of certain things, and that has finally gotten me to come out and do this video. I'm going to address that later, but to start off, something I've noticed is a lot of people are attacking fans without watching their content, and they're attacking the idea if somebody isn't positive, that they are negative for clicks, they're doing it all for clout, and that they're not real fans. Well, I'm going to state right here a couple of reasons why that's not true. First of all, if you're being critical of something, a lot of times it is because you truly like it. You want to see it at its best potential, and you're very disappointed. You're hurt. And sometimes we have methods that we didn't have back in the day. We were message boards. We were talking with our buddies. We were evoking that. And yes, it can have a bit of negative context to it, but it's also therapeutic. Some people, like, when they're truly upset, being able to go onto YouTube and talk about it, it helps them out. And I hear a lot of people go, just stop watching Star Wars then, if you don't like current Star Wars. To that I say, they want to like it. They want to, they're watching it, they're trying to see it, they're hoping for it. Some of them, may make a comment like, hey, it just makes more content for us. They want to see it be good, and they're there to be critical when it's not. But the fact of the matter is, you say, hey, if you don't like the content, just don't watch it. That goes to you too. See, if you don't like that certain YouTubers or podcasters are negative about a show, there's a secret. You don't have to watch them. You don't have to have interest in them. And to say, to try to accuse them of having a negative influence on the discussion, on that, guess what? The people that do listen to them, they don't do it because, they actually like Star Wars, but then they listen to them and now they don't. No. They listen to them because they want to hear their opinion voiced. So that's why they listen to them. And the fact that they have enough interest to make or watch videos discussing this stuff means that they actually do care about Star Wars. Now, that's not to say that people who love everything and just accept it, that they don't love Star Wars too. They could just be so fanatical, like whatever. I mean, I can be somewhat critical of Sonic the Hedgehog, but I am that guy that even the games I hate, I play. I even the cartoons that are kind of cringy, I watch. That's a fandom I'm in, and I watch it all. I read the comics, and it's one of those things where, there's different comic series, different cartoons, completely different premise, and I accept them all as what they are and take them in. So I understand being that kind of fan. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not critical about things in the franchise and upset when certain things happen, but I am generally taking things at face value for what they are. I'm not as much as that with Star Wars. I loved everything around Star Wars up until Episode 2. And Episode 2, to me, I didn't like it. To me, it's my least liked Star Wars movie of all. I didn't like what it did to the character of Darth Vader. I was not a fan of what they did with Anakin Skywalker. The Clone Wars cartoon show has really softened my view of that. But so I look at, when it comes to movies, there's more Star Wars movies I dislike than like. But people know me as a pretty positive guy, so I'm not somebody who's really into the negative. That said, I have stated before, when I talk about stuff that are negative on my channel, it's almost therapeutic for me. And I look at it that way for these people. They're upset. They like having a voice. And people have no problem with people protesting or doing, these other things about other things in life. Coming on and having a YouTube channel that maybe talks bad about a show that you like is not the end of the world. You do not have to consume them. And they are not negative. They are not toxic. They just don't like the show. Now, I can understand why some people feel like, oh, well, the certain things that they're talking about, or the certain things that they're complaining about, that is toxic, that is negative, and we will get into that in a moment. But this is something, one of the things that I have noticed really over the last couple of years, but really this last year, it's getting so much worse, is that people who want to be the positive spend more time complaining about negative YouTubers than they actually do talking positively about Star Wars. And guess what? They're becoming what they're saying they're against. Oh, we're all about positivity here. We don't do that negative stuff. But then they talk 20 minutes about, oh, I guess if you're a big YouTuber, if you're this or that, and they're working for the grind, and these grifters, and and they go on and on and on. It's like, I have no interest in listening to that podcast. Some of those podcasts that you're talking about, those YouTube channels, I personally don't listen to them. You know why I don't listen to them? Not because necessarily I disagree with them, but because I can't live in that negative space. I can't be in there, like you said. There is a little bit of grifting to it, in that there is, or grind, or you could say grind for an income to running a channel on YouTube, week after week, putting out content, and that's what it goes with. It's just one of those things. But what I've noticed is some channels that I really respect, that I love, that they've always kind of taken that middle road. They're positive. They don't necessarily like everything, but they focus on what they like, and that have really just spending every podcast 20 minutes talking about, describing how we're the positive ones. We're not like those other people you see on. I'm like, well, if you're a regular listener, you know that. But now you're becoming the fandom menace of the fandom menace, so to speak. You are becoming the channel that talks bad about people that talk bad about Star Wars. I have no interest in hearing that. Most of your listeners have no interest in hearing that. You know what? If you had one episode where you got up on your soapbox and you told them what you really feel, I think a lot of your listeners would have been, yeah, well said, or something like that. But when you do it week after week after week, bringing it up, talking about it, the negative discussion on Twitter, this, and I have seen this with countless positive ones. I have seen it even inside my beloved Red 5 network. They're not immune to it. I have seen it from a lot of people who have left the Red 5 network. I have noticed that when they, the Red 5 network has a lot of different opinions. You have people who are very positive, and you have people who were negative, and there's a necessity that when you were part of the network, that you were cordial to each other. And there's some that when they leave the network, well, now we're going to be much more vocal about how we feel. And there's people I don't care for that are that way. But there's one person in particular that, he's super big. He doesn't need me to come to his defense, but I've seen a lot of focal point on Star Wars theory. So I'm going to talk about that because I see a lot of the comments people make about Star Wars theory is like your post or your comment in your podcast. They go, tell me you don't watch Star Wars theory without telling me you don't watch Star Wars theory. I'll be right off the bat. Star Wars theory, his opinions about Star Wars do not align with mine. And then I am more negative than him. I don't care. Like, he thinks episode 2 and 3 are like some of the greatest Star Wars ever was. It was impactful for his life when he was going through cancer treatment and he was watching those movies, and it was what hung on to him, and it's why Star Wars is so big to him. He cries at a drop of the head. Like, he cried at Luke Skywalker and The Mandalorian and all, and you know what? Lucasfilm made fun of him. I don't make fun of him for that, but that's just, to me, Star Wars is not that level. Star Wars is not that level for me. I thought it was a really cool moment. I didn't cry. Great that he cried. Great that he was willing to be confident, show those emotions, stuff like that. But I saw everybody attacked him. Oh, this guy, he's just so into Star Wars, and everybody made fun of him. And yet, in turn, when he talks negative about something, everyone's, oh, he's such a hater, he's such a grifter, he doesn't actually care about Star Wars. What do you think? So I like Star Wars Theory's channel because he does regular lore discussions, he does theories, he does kind of like background with what's going on in the comics, and he puts out a video about at least one a day, sometimes more than that in a day. And he runs other channels, like he does a Harry Potter and a Marvel and a Cobra Kai channel, and then just a general podcasting, interviewing people channel. What I've noticed is that people keep talking about, oh, he's negative. No, first off, he does play the thumbnail game. And I'm not a fan of the thumbnail game. But if you're going to make a successful business on YouTube, it's kind of the thing you have to do. So a lot of times he will put a picture of himself, like, and he'll pick up a thing and maybe he'll say a controversial line. Sometimes it'll be like, does this break canon? And then his answer will be, no, actually it doesn't. And he'll have a very positive video. But everybody, oh yeah, that's what Star Wars Theory is hating on today. Tell me you don't watch his videos without telling me you don't watch his videos. Like, let's take a recent example, The Acolyte. Early on in the Acolyte episodes, people were getting upset at every little detail. And he had a feeling he wasn't going to like The Acolyte. He was very blunt about all the things he wasn't like he was seeing. But he also made a point of, hey, this whip lightsaber that everybody seems upset about, it's been in Legends, it's been in the Clone Wars cartoons, and he pointed out all the situations. You can't be upset about this. This has been part of Star Wars for decades. This is, fine. There are plenty of things to complain about the show. Don't complain. Like, let's give defense to that. He tried to give lore explanations. People said he sent his fans after Wikipedia. No, he did not. He was watching. He was doing a live stream, and he was talking about the thing. He looked something up on Wikipedia, and while he was there, the page refreshed, and it disappeared. Now, that's because somebody at Wikipedia did not like that he was referencing it when it changed it, and he was like, wow, that's interesting. And he kind of took it. He did not say, hey, everybody, go harass Wikipedia. And if there's anything you should know about Star Wars Theory, is that one of the things is a lot of the fandom menace don't like Star Wars Theory. They've warmed up to him a little bit recently, but for a long time, he was outcast from that side of the fandom. Why? Because he's always held that, hey, if you are a sequel trilogy fan, if you're a Last Jedi fan, you can be in my community. You can watch my stuff. I don't agree with you, but you can be in my community. Because when I was young, and I was really into the prequels, and a lot of OT fans were basically telling me that I was dumb for liking it. I will never tell anybody that they're wrong for liking something. If you like that, good for you, but I am going to state my opinions. I hope you're not offended. That has always been his stance. He has always said, don't go attack people. In almost all his videos, when there's anything that could be considered a call to arms, he's the first to say, do not do this. And yet, he's accused of it a lot. The thing that made me want to make this video, early on in the year, was the whole bricks and screws incident. So here's what I find interesting. Everyone was dagging on Star Wars Theory, yet he was talking about how much he loved the Bad Batch. He was talking about a lot of positives with Andor. He liked Andor. Would you know that? Because the community thinks that he thinks it's absolute garbage. And that last final episode, he streamed an hour up before the episode launched. The 45 minutes or whatever, live streamed him watching the episode. Then another hour and 15 minutes afterwards, rounding it all out. He theoried about what he was hoping, what he thinks we'll see, all that. We saw him react. And at the end, he gave it a favorable score. It was passable Star Wars. He said it wasn't bad, it didn't assault him. He says, but he spent near an hour talking about everything he liked about the show, recapping the show as a whole. Now, mind you, this is in the wee hours of the night. The guy's been up a long time. He's been waxing on talking about this show for a long time. And then he goes, well, but, some of it doesn't click for me. And then he started talking about an ILM documentary that he had watched. And an interview there where they were talking about when they were making the Imperial bases and stuff, that they had the cameras and they wanted to find, they made it so that the camera's screws were hidden because the idea, and this is on the original trilogy and stuff, that if suddenly you saw a Phillips head screw, it would be bad. So that isn't a thing. He says, he says, it's so funny I was watching that because in this episode, there was, a Phillips head screw on a camera. And guess what? I'm a locksmith. I noticed the camera. I liked his point because that camera was like the basic bargain thing from 10 years ago. It's not even they have so much more sci-fi looking cameras, that are weird ball things and different things that could be there. And you have to be buying a pretty cheap camera to not have hidden screws. Because most of them now, they have a plate that goes over and then a little set screw on the side so that the actual mounting screws are covered. That's pretty much standard. And anything that's considered high security would not have a regular Phillips head screwdriver on. It would have some type of high security screw, which would look more alien, stuff like that. But that would be there in the real world, in actuality, in anything that was outside posted. Seeing stuff like that, my personal thing, he didn't bring this up, my personal thing was seeing the Imperials go in, not the Imperials, the local police go in SWAT uniform. It was basically SWAT, it was the jackets, the shields, and the baton. I just said, this is, I sometimes, as a locksmith, I work with SWAT sometimes. It was so earthy, their armor and stuff like that. I'm like, that's the thing. These are space cops. Give them some cool looking armor, or don't just go down and get some normal bulletproof vests and put it on these guys. This isn't space. This is it was so tacky. So tacky with shields and which are just normal. Give them energy shields. Just make it interesting. I get that they're not the Empire, but just make it interesting. So he talked about that. And then he talked about the bricks. Okay. So he was talking about not that there shouldn't be bricks in Star Wars. That the bricks he was talking about was those faux pas bricks that are the red bricks that you go down and you get the fake ones at the hardware store that you then put up and stuff like that to make it look like you have a brick fireplace or something like that, or a brick backsplash. They were not the real. It wasn't even real brick. It was, and so they were using that stuff on the sets. Make something look so domestic, and everybody's going, hey, wow, lawns being mowed and stuff in the next Star Wars thing. But for all the things that Andor did well, with beautiful sets and beautiful photography, there were times in that show when I was like, oh yeah, that's right, this is a Star Wars show. Because it was like, and so he just coming in, but this is over a 3-hour stream, and he spends about 15 minutes on the negatives, and he's saying, this is what felt like it felt off to me. He says, I enjoyed it, I liked it, but it felt off. It didn't feel like it had that Lucas magic to me. And, I'm hoping it does in the second season. And he said he was looking forward to the second season, all that. But he just kind of spent 15 minutes talking about the negative. The rest of it was positive. He liked the show. 15 minutes. 5 minutes where he gives his hottest of takes out of that gets clipped. And then even like 1 minute out of that gets kind of clipped. And it gets passed around social media. And he gets dogged on. It's so dumb. Like, oh, he didn't like bricks and screws. How are things held together? Oh, could this guy's throwing away this whole show over this? How dumb and petty could you be? Like the outcry that I saw from other podcasters, other YouTubers over that. The guy said he liked the show. It's like, and you know what? His opinion of the show has become more negative since. Why? Because when he's had to defend why he felt like it was missing something, and he's had so much vitriol towards him, the more you're going to have to defend your stance there, you're not going to start liking it more. You're going to think about it more. It's going to be your focus more. It was just a little blurb in an over 3-hour stream. And the internet, and that's what I find amazing, is there's these people that don't like him, that take clips. Now, I think he's cringy as can be sometimes. I think some of his love of prequel stuff, he thinks that the Padme-Anakin relationship is like the most beautiful love story ever told. I'd gag me. But you know what? I respect him for his opinion, and I like the fact that he knows way more about Star Wars lore than me. And I'm a pretty big Star Wars guy. I know a lot of things, but I'm not it's not my life, And he's spent all this money on the video. And just seeing the way that people attack him and they go, oh, well, he's a racist and he's a bigot. And it's like, nowhere in any of his things does he talk about that. When that all came up is when he started getting attacked and made fun of by Lucasfilm for crying. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, he's so mad about his fan film. And he's mad because he contacted Disney. He followed all of their rules. And he's not trying to monetize the fan film. His problem is Disney monetized it. And then they put commercials to the point where it's unwatchable. That's why he was upset with him. He doesn't get all the brand deals. But you know what? He's the biggest YouTuber out there. And a lot of people make the comment that he's so big because he's negative. He's actually not. In fact, before he ever started producing negative content, he became the biggest YouTuber on the platform. It's not because he's negative. And I've seen this sentiment also of people who are frustrated that their podcast isn't catching on. Well, guess what? There's a couple of reasons for that. One, when did your podcast start? Because if it started before Disney purchased, or at the time that Disney purchased Lucasfilm, you may have acquired an audience before the demographic became that. I've got over 30 Star Wars podcasts that I listen to. And I only listen to a fraction. There are hundreds of Star Wars podcasts. A lot of these people started when there weren't hundreds, when there was maybe 100, or if you go even farther back, when there was 50 or 20. And so they amassed themselves an audience. It is harder to do now. But the big thing with Star Wars Theory is, as I mentioned earlier, he makes videos every day. He is consistent. The guy grinds. It is his job. He doesn't go do a regular job and have a weekly hobby podcast. YouTube rewards him for that. It's not because negative clicks sell. Because while he does do the thumbnail game and all that kind of stuff, a lot of his videos are positive. Now, one of the things, since he's kind of been canceled from the positive Star Wars side of YouTube and all that, and he's no longer allowed to go to any of the events because Lucasfilm used to bring him out to events and stuff like that. And when he started to get the backlash, when Lucasfilm employees were teasing him for crying on screen, when he got hammered for these different things, he went over and he started to say, hey, you know what? I'm not a racist. I'm not all these things, and yet people are calling me. And I've kind of avoided people in the Geeks and Gamer crew, the Nerdrotic, all these different ones, because that's kind of been the buzz that people tell me, and I've not really looked into it, and I didn't want to be associated with it. But you know what? I'm being thrown into that. I want to find out if there's good people in these things. It's a noisy car goes by. But he, so then he reached out to Jeremy Geeks Gamer stuff, and he started having ones who are a bit more negative than him on a weekly podcast. He had the guy from Collider. He's had these different ones on, and sometimes people say, well, if you associate with that person, then you're just like them. That's not true. That's not true. He's just not afraid of opinions, and he's perfectly fine with the positive opinions, but those people are so cancel ready that they won't do that. Now that he's done that, they have distanced themselves completely from him, which is sad. It's sad. Because I think a lot of people could have grown, could have gotten more audience from that, but no. So, look at that. Now, let's get to this thing. Okay. Dear Team YouTube, last week, actor Amanda Stenberg, they posted candid comments on Instagram about the rampage of bigotry and vitriol that she received since leading the cast of The Acolyte, the latest addition to the Star Wars universe. Stenberg's experience is not new. In fact, this known tactic was initially provoked from former I'm not going to read all those names. I don't know. But they're talking about targeted the Ghostbuster actor. Anyways, it's just going on and it's saying, so it's bigger. Okay, I didn't watch The Acolyte. I knew ahead of time in the marketing, they basically told me that it wasn't for me. And I mean, it's okay, I'm going to pass. I'm not going to watch it. But, you know, I kept my ear to the ground and I listened to some podcasts about it. And you know what? If podcasts I trust, and I'm not talking about Neurotic. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about, you know, my buddies. If they were able to convince me in their podcast that this was something to check out, I would have dived into the show. But even the ones that liked the podcast, like the Acolyte, it felt like they were trying to defend it, like they were trying to come up with excuses why it doesn't break canon. None of them really made me feel like, whoa, yeah, that sounds like it's going to blow me away. Let's fire up that Disney Plus. No, they just felt like they were combating negative comments, and nothing they said interests me. But this Amanda Stenberg, I've seen clips on Twitter of the acting certain scenes for The Acolyte. I don't know if it's her acting, her direction, whatever. It was not good. It was just not good. It had nothing to do with the fact that she was black. I mean, just seeing so many scenes where she's making the same face, it's just not good. And she's playing two different characters, and you can't tell them apart. It's just not good. And then finding out, like, she released that, like, rap video talking about being oppressed for over 100 years and all this stuff. She's got a white dad who's super wealthy. She's gotten to be in Star Wars. She is privileged in so many ways. And she's talking about her oppression. I guarantee you, she does not know what the average American working man, woman, whatever, has to go through to make ends meet, to get by. And that doesn't matter whether they're black, they're white, they're Asian, Mexican, whatever color of it is. if you're just an average person working average, you're in the food industry, you're in the grocery industry, any type of commercial services, if you're out working construction, you're out working as a plumber, a locksmith, electrician, you're a delivery guy, all these different jobs that require you to actually show up, work, even people in office work, like that, they can have mind-numbing work, they're staring at a computer all day, typing, doing all that kind of stuff, filing, and she has no idea the actual hardship people go, and they go through all that, and then they watch as everything's taken away by taxes, by bills, their mortgage or their rent or their, they pay their food bill, and they watch that was a whole week's paycheck went to their food bill for the month. Just on and on and on and on again, and she's talking about like how she doesn't have opportunities, how she's depressed, and she's in a Star Wars show. She's leading a Star Wars show. How disingenuous. So, yes, fans did not like her. And they said she wasn't a good actor, but that doesn't make them bigots. Now, I will say, because it goes on here, and this is one of the things that I find interesting when it gets to the facts. It's going to talk about some people here that Geeks and Gamers, Nerdrotic, and RK Outpost, I think is the other one. So, first off, Nerdrotic. Nerdrotic is a guy who was a comic book shop. He watched the changes to the industry ruin his business to the point where, even though it was his dream job, he had to sell his shop, move out. He started doing YouTube. And he's seeing it happen in other things other than comics. And he speaks out. Now, in my opinion, the guy has a lot of knowledge. Everybody people I know who have met him in person say he's the nicest guy, blah, 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 blah. He comes off too angry in his videos. He gets real worked up and mad and yelling, and I just can't take that negativity. It puts me in a place where I feel really bad after I've watched his videos. And occasionally it'll be something I'll want to see what he thinks about it. But what I feel is a waste is he has so much comic book knowledge. I would love him to do more like what Star Wars Theory does and do more like videos where he just talks about the comics that were great. But I get why he doesn't. I get why it's therapeutic. I also get why he feels that what he does is important. Because he watched his livelihood disappear by changes in the comic book industry. And, he's trying to be a warning bell, whatever. It's not my thing. I don't have to watch him. Doesn't bother me a bit. He can keep doing all that he does. I cannot watch it. Doesn't bother me. Geeks and Gamers. So, right after The Last Jedi, I have a unique perspective on Geeks and Gamers. So, they're saying that they're sending mobs after people and stuff like that. My early interaction, I was in a live stream. It wasn't a Geeks and Gamers live stream. It had Alex, the Salty Nerd. It had Matt Vader, who wasn't part of the Salty Nerds yet. It had Abu Nas, Starkiller, a couple of different people, and they're all doing a live stream. And I'm kind of in there because I just started to associate with Alex, the Salty Nerd, on Twitter. And over an Indiana Jones thing that he did with Drunk 3PO and stuff like that. And, and he really had liked a post that I did, and he tried to promote it and get it. And so I was like, oh, cool, it was over something that was Stargate related too. And so we were just kind of starting to associate, and he's, he did so since I'd followed him, and he was an early person that I'd followed on that Twitter account, I saw that he was going to be in this live stream, so I joined it. Some Geeks and Gamer crew people, it wasn't called a raid then, but they mass came into the chat, and they were kind of like, these are our fellow people of the Phantom Menace, but we're going to kind of rise them and stuff. And they were they really changed the tone of the stream because they really started going on and just hating every aspect of The Last Jedi. And I was being I was loving kind of the chill nerd debate that was happening, and everyone was going about the bombs falling in space. And I kind of started going, hey, now, there's lots to dislike in The Last Jedi. But guess what? Nothing in the original trilogy followed actually the loss of space. You had explosions, you had sounds in space. The whole trench run on the Death Star, none of that makes sense from a spatial point of view. But it was all kind of just grounded in Avengers. That wasn't what was important. So, I mean, it's silly. If this was a good movie, nobody would be complaining about the bomb scene in that attack. And I got met with a lot of pushback from that crowd. And then they got to the point about Luke throwing the lightsaber. And I am one of the unique position that I actually don't think that is a bad scene. In fact, I actually, when I was in the theater, I was really excited. Now, I expected at some point there to be a moment when he needs the lightsaber, whether he's asking her to train with him or whatever, and like she pulls up her blade, he keeps saying, come at me with that, and then that lightsaber would have been instantly in his hand. It never left his grasp, and it was just a teaching moment. People are like, oh, he's being careless with it. No, if he's the Jedi Master, the Luke I know from Legends, he had possession of that saber. Yeah, he tossed it behind him, but he had possession of that saber at all times. I said, what was wrong is when it didn't fall through. I said, like, yes, that could be like the Yoda playing around with the little light. Like, that could be like he's throwing her for a loop. But then he didn't do anything with it. He never, and then there was the moment when he saw R2, and then I was like, that would be the moment if they, and I remember some of the other ones in the stream were saying, if at that moment he actually seriously trained her, then they would have accepted it. But there were people in the chat like, no. And so I was kind of arguing with a few of them in the chat. And then I did have somebody tell me, you should just off yourself. You're such a Disney shill. You're so far up Brian Johnson's, that, you're wasting oxygen. You'd be better off if you weren't alive. Or something. Somebody started talking like that to me. And they were a fan from the Geeks and Gamer crowd. That was when Alex, who had a relationship with Ro, the founder of the Red 5 Network, co-founder, but he's the main guy that got it going, and he said, hey, this is probably not your speed. Ro's a chill guy. He's a lot more reasonable. You're going to enjoy his content. Let me get you over there. Because and he came into the chat and he was defending me. All that said, do I think that Geeks and Gamers as a whole are just a bunch of racist, throwing death threats at all these people? No. First of all, Jeremy, in a comedic way, he tries to be a jerk or whatever, stuff like that. But they've never called to action people to do that. They do charity. They do all sorts of things. They have tons of people of color and women among Geeks and Gamers. So the idea that they only hate Star Wars because it's diverse is ridiculous to me. I don't like them. There was a period of time when I saw Jeremy do a video about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie versus Birds of Prey. And I'm like, oh, cool. I didn't realize, he was talking about how he grew up liking Sonic. And I'm like, okay, I didn't realize that. And I watched the video, and then I watched his next one he did. And then I realized he did 12 videos on it. And then I'm like, he's not like adding anything new. He's just adding an additional tweet he's reading off of Twitter. I'm like, yes, this is grifting. You know what? He acknowledges it. There's clips of him saying it live stream. So don't you say that none of us don't do that, because we do. He's made a business out of it. Yes. I don't have to listen to it. I don't hate them. I don't think that they should be deplatformed. And I think that when you have that big of an influence and that big of a following, are you going to have a bigot in your following? Yes. I would like to see the YouTuber out there that somehow knows every person who views their content and vets them. See if they don't say the things to their people that they're a content creator, they have viewers. If they're not encouraging people to go out and attack ones, they're not. But what interests me is the stuff that they say in the facts. That in 2018, Geeks and Gamers encouraged harassment against Vietnamese actor Kelly Marie Tran, leading up to her live. I'll go on and saying, I was watching some of this stuff back then, they were talking about, oh man, they made her look so ugly, this, that, and that. They weren't tagging her in it. They weren't telling her fans to tag her in it. They were making videos about it, and she might have seen that. And then after the fact, when she left Instagram and that story broke, they were very public in saying, hey, if any of our fans are harassing her, then you're not all about what we're about. I remember them making a video, because I checked that out. I watched very little of their content. But, you know, when I saw that there's a huge controversy, and then they give a reply video, a lot of times I'll watch the reply video. I'll watch some of the videos from people I like that are talking about the controversy and why they don't like them, just to be informed. And there was like a downside. Now, there was also the one in the Obi-Wan show. Well, that was very misleading. Moses Ingram, you know, her character was wedged in there, made no sense. Like, I probably would have liked that show if the Reva character wasn't in it, because everything that was kind of an interesting plot point, it just felt like that was being jammed in there. There was more Reva than there was Obi-Wan, and I mean, it was probably 50-50, but this is a character we don't know when they were going to get into they were going to redeem her as it was just messy and unnecessary. And she's a good actress. She's been good in other things, but that's... Meanwhile, though, despite people, like sometimes when they didn't like Ahsoka, they never talked bad about Rosario Dawson. They don't talk bad about a lot of these other actors of color. They also seem to like One Piece, which is full of actors of color. So like this is just a false, like they're stating their fans went after them. I'm sorry, but these groups don't actively tell you to go out and attack actors. Now, are there people who are like that, who like that these people do videos about not liking this stuff and maybe watch their stuff? There's going to be crossover. There's going to be crossover, but that doesn't mean that they're responsible for the acolyte failing. And they're taking joy over it. And maybe you're frustrated at that. I get that. I get that. But were they wrong? The numbers don't lie. The acolyte needed the power of one, the power of two, the power of many viewers. But it had the power of few viewers. Very few viewers. Their watch hours was most disappointing. It was, when you think of how many people went and saw The Last Jedi, how many people did, when you break it down to how little that had, even if you just take the max of what Disney Plus is, and I would argue that Marvel, Star Wars are two of the biggest draws to Disney Plus. I think you have Marvel, Star Wars, sports, and kids cartoons. Those are probably the four pillars. Oh, the National Geographic. People don't pay the monthly fee for that. They might enjoy it, but they don't pay it. There's all sorts of stuff. The back catalog of animated shows, easy access to keep your kids entertained. That's a big draw for a big portion of that. Sports is another big draw, especially when you saw how much we're in the India market and how much they lost when they lost some of the Indian sports. Really affected them on their subscriber numbers. So it shows the fact that they have sports bundled in there is a big portion of it. When you're coming to their movie prof, that their Narnia movies aren't pulling in numbers. They're Hocus Pocus, these other Disney properties of movie franchises are not what's pulling people to Disney Plus. It is Star Wars and Marvel. And they have a ton of it on there. And Star Wars was what launched Disney Plus. The Mandalorian was single-handedly responsible for so many of the initial subscribers to that. So to see the numbers so low, and people are out there saying it is because of these people that's gone. Now, they're saying, oh, they're racist, they're this, that. No, RK Outpost, I've not watched him at all. I didn't really know who that was. But I saw some of the clips, and he comes across as somebody who is a bit colorful in his language. You know, I run a very clean channel, but not everybody does. I would like to say that there is a difference between someone who is a bigot and a racist and someone who is inappropriate in their speech. Because that comes down to what people believe. I'm not saying that either is that one is okay, but it's something I've seen, like the term between was sexist. That's probably my easiest one. Like, people will go back in their in the Star Trek fandom. There's a lot of new people that try to say that, well, Gene Roddenberry was quite sexist. He was not sexist. He was a womanizer, but he wasn't sexist. Why? Because he felt women could do that. He hired women. He used women in his productions. He had respect for women in that way. However, he also wanted to sleep with every woman he saw. He had an open marriage. He was constantly flirting. He dressed women provocatively in his productions. And, you know, he was known for hitting on women. And, you know, he would be the first guy to do the cat call or whatever. You know, that's the kind of guy he was. But he also employed women. He put women in positions of management, as writers, as directors, as, you know, lead cast members in the show, women of color. Like, he was not sexist. Those are different things. And people water down words. When you think of racism and bigotry, like, when you're a racist, you think that another race is inferior to yours just based on their color of skin. That is a mentality that somehow your life is more valuable than yours because you were born of this race and they were born of that race. That is racism. And, you know, the idea that, like, these people shouldn't be allowed to vote, these people shouldn't be allowed to eat with us, these people shouldn't be allowed to be in management, they can't do this, they're dumber, they're weaker, they're inferior. That's racism. Somebody who uses an offensive word or does that, but are equally jerks to everybody, including their own race, that doesn't necessarily make them racist. It doesn't make them a good person, but it doesn't make them racist. And I feel like they get real colorful talking about stuff, but they never, I'm not seeing where they say, because they put this person in, that, now I do see the discussion about DEI hires. That is a big popular topic with all these ones right now. And it is a thing. There is DEI is a kickback money thing. You know what? There's, in the 90s, we had all the environmental things, the don't do drugs, all that stuff. The government was giving cartoons extra money if they put that stuff in there. Having certain quotas reached gets you things. What people are noticing, though, is that is more important than the story. Once again, looking at Star Trek, one of the Star Trek shows was coming out, and I remember, or was it Star Wars? I can't remember. One of these sci-fi shows was coming out, and I remember as they were announcing people, they weren't telling us what they did on the ship, what they this or what their character was about. It was just, oh, this character is non-binary. This, like, you know, when you think back to, like, the commercials of all the old Star Wars movies, it wasn't like, yes, we're going to have a new character in Empire Strikes Back. He's called Lando Calrissian. He's a black African-American, and he's pansexual, and he's just, no, he's like, oh, there's Lando. He's a suave old friend of Han's who's kind of got a mining operation that may not be on the up and up. You know, he's a smooth talker, quick, but can he be trusted? Like, that would be how he would be marketed. They wouldn't just, like, here's his sexual press and his pronouns and his race. That's all they focus on in the marketing. So then when people notice it, well, that's what you marketed. You didn't tell us, well, she's really powerful in the Force because of this, or she's this cool smuggler character, this, that. They just come out with that stuff. It's very frustrating to people that when they realize the story is no longer what's important. It's about the messaging, and they take what is supposed to be the universe and turn it around. The Acolyte's message of the Sith were not really that bad, and the Jedi were awful. It feels very anti-religious. It feels very anti a lot of good and morals, where Star Wars has always been a show about black and white. And you can look at it and you go, hey, the destruction of the Death Star, I am sure that caused a lot of problems. Economically, if you wanted to go through it through real world, that would have been devastating for the galaxy. The rebels are technically terrorists. But, no, they're the good guys. And it just, so much of this, it's just... I don't watch Geeks and Gamers. I don't watch Nerdrotic. I don't watch Arcade Outpost. And I watch a little bit of Star Wars Theory. He puts out too much content for me to consume, and some of it I find cringy, or his live streams where he's got other people on that I don't care for, I'm not going to sit there and waste my time with. But they have the right to do it. And what they're doing is not this big negative thing. They're not taking down Lucasfilm. Because guess what? The biggest one of them, Star Wars Theory, has 3.8 million or something like that followers? Star Wars should be pulling in 1 billion viewers. Hundreds of millions of viewers at the very least. It's a property that is known in every country on the planet. It used to be, at one point in time, it was the biggest property that there was. So if you're saying that these few dissenting voices are going to run it, guess what? Fox, CNN, ABC, every late night talk show made fun of the prequels to no end. They still made billions in the box office. I don't see how it can be any more clear. Like, if you're saying that they had the power to brainwash, like, people would have enjoyed it, but they listened to these guys and they were brainwashed. So you're saying all Star Wars fans are stupid, that they can't even recognize that they actually like something because somebody on YouTube told them they didn't. Come on. The actions of the people who made this statement is just reprehensible. And they're becoming what they dislike. But the sad thing is, I think a lot of it is jealousy. A lot of people frustrated that they're not having success, that they're not making a living talking about Star Wars, and these people are. It's the grind. They put in the videos day in and day out. They live stream. They do all this stuff to make that money. You want to put out a podcast once a week or twice a week or whatever, and think that you're going to have the same success as them because you feel that you're more positive and that you should deserve it. No. You want to have that and you want to be positive, put in the work like they do. Do the grind like they do, and you will see success. It's just that simple. And have an actual interesting opinion, Don't blindly hate everything. And here's something that they said, like, if they got access, they would change it. No. But they'd say, even if it was good, they would still hate on it because that's what they need to do. Wrong. Did you not watch Picard Season 3? Did you not watch a good portion of these creators who are supposed negative creators wax on about how much they love Picard Season 3? And video after video after video, positively. These people, same people, they talk about Alita Battle Angel, they talk about the One Piece live action. Like, when there's something they like, they go on and on and on about it. Just like they go on and on and on about how they don't like. It's consistency, not the negativity. It's the consistency that brings them the views. I saw a lot of people posting that thing, and that changed my opinion of a lot of people. Because if you looked at that and thought, yeah, this is a good thing to share, then I don't know. I have a hard time taking your opinion seriously. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of most of those people. I don't watch their content. But I think they have the right to exist. I understand how they feel, and I understand why a lot of people are drawn to it. I don't think it's negatively harming. People treating them like they're some sort of cancer, creating this war between fans of this and fans of that, that's what's toxic. So if you're going to have a positive podcast and spend 20 minutes of it talking about how, well, what does Star Wars Theory say? What's he got wrong with this week's episode of The Acolyte? What's the internet hate about this? You know, these grifters. You're not a positive podcast. Stop calling yourselves that. Stop spending 20 minutes talking about how you're positive unlike the others, because that's negative. Be positive. Talk about what you love. And if you didn't like something, skip it if you don't want to be adding to that negative voice. But don't feel like you have to positively review everything just so you can keep that image of being positive. I don't. And I consider myself a very positive YouTuber. And don't go around just... You look petty. You look petty. And it's grating. I'm tired of listening to it. I'm tired of not turning into Geeks and Gamers and having to hear about Geeks and Gamers. I'm tired of turning in somewhere not to Nerdrotic, not to Doomcock, not to all these other things and hearing about that. I'm tired of consuming a little bit of Star Wars Theory stuff, specifically focusing on his positive stuff, and then hearing how he's such a negative person. Why does he have to be the top? Why can't we be bigger? Why don't people it's because we don't do negative videos like Star Wars Theory. Stop. If that's going to be what your content is, I have no interest. And guess what? I think I represent a lot of your viewers. I think a lot of your viewers, ones who also may not watch those people, they're not tuning in to hear you talk about how you don't like some other YouTuber. They're tuning in to hear you talk about Star Wars, especially since you claim to be all about the positivity, all about looking for the good and stuff. If you're looking for that, if you're somebody who's tired of the negative, tired of listening to all these other YouTubers complain about Star Wars, you don't want to tune in to your supposed Star Wars outlet, positive Star Wars outlet, just to be hit with all the same topics that the other guys are talking about. Oh, all these people are mad about this, so we got to defend it. And we're going to bring out we're positive, they're negative. They're not tuning in for that. They're tuning in for Star Wars. That's what your channel is about. Is that don't be the Star Wars gossip mill. Don't be the Star Wars, here we're better than these other people. Just don't. Because, like I said, I used to be to 140. I'm down to 70 something. I've been trimming. And I'm going to keep trimming. And I think you're going to see your audience shrink. And I'm saying this because I like you guys. These people I listen to, I enjoy their content. There was one podcast that I was listening to. I really enjoyed them. And then they did a podcast about Return of the Jedi, one of my favorite movies. They had an hour-long podcast. They spent 40 minutes of it talking about how if you like Return of the Jedi, there's no way you can dislike The Last Jedi. And then they spent 10 minutes talking about how the special edition is better than the original. And then they spent 5 minutes talking about the actual movie that I'm in love with. Right there. I had a really hard time listening to their podcast, and I kind of stopped. That was like the last one I listened to. And then I noticed, like 3 months later, they stopped podcasting. Why? Because they saw that they drove their fans away. And their life was imploding because they were in such a negative space. I don't want to see that happen to all my favorite podcasts. I don't want to see everybody burn out because they're so focused on the fact that other people don't like Star Wars right now. Enjoy what you enjoy. Talk about it. You know what? You can talk all great about how much you love something that I disliked, and I will listen to you. And conversely, someone can occasionally talk about how they dislike something that I love, and I'll listen to you. I like opinions. I like getting other points of view. But I'm not going to sit there and listen to you talk about how other people's opinions don't matter. People's opinions are toxic, and they're wrong, and they shouldn't be allowed on YouTube. I'm not going to be here for that. And if that's what your content rolls down to, well, you're just not going to... Like those people, you're not going to be content that I'm going to listen to. And, you know, you need... People tell me, oh, you know, you need 100 people like Nick. Because Nick helps you. Nick's supportive. He gives feedback. He does this, that. This is what it's down to. Like, I don't have time in my life for that, and it's very frustrating to see content that I like go down this path. And so, enough is enough. Either grow up, get over it, and go back to making good content, or why are you even doing this? If all you're going to do is whine, why are you even doing this? As the people who supposedly don't whine. It's, anyways, this has been something that has been on my mind for quite some time. I rambled a whole lot, so thank to anyone who actually watched all this. But if you're some random person on the internet who's clicked on this and was like, who is this guy? The podcasts I listen to know me because I interact with all of them. So this is a message to all of them. Hope you all have a good day. And I hope that you're able to take something out of this and find benefit from it.
Greetings, listener. Just a reminder that the podcast you just heard is a proud member of the Red 5 Network family. Red 5 Network offers you a great variety of shows you'll be sure to love. So the next time you're itching for quality content, make sure you head over to Red 5 Network. You'll find this podcast along with a whole lot more. All wings report in. It's the Red 5 Network.